This is Monica Perez here with Steve Poikonen of AM Wake Up, Union of the Unwanted, many other things. Third Eye Carnival. We're going to talk about that. And we kind of have the same perspective viewpoint on quite a few things. And believe it or not, it's kind of like a third way. We don't have a lot of people in our basket. So I thought we could talk about that stuff and anything y'all want to talk about it because this is live. So thanks, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Monica. It's always good to be on your show, to spend a little bit of time hanging out with you, especially when it's a little bit less of a combative or contentious environment. Yeah.
When there aren't 8 people who flip back and forth between Trump's fine and I hate technocracy. It's like, but if Trump's fine and you hate technocracy, why'd you vote for him? So that's where I just needed to like vent a little bit and get it out of my head, is that I'm feeling really gaslit by the people who, so many people were like, Trump's our only hope and he's better than the alternative and we got to just hold your nose and vote for him, whatever. And then you hear from the same, I guess, coroners, like this technocracy, totalitarianism, blah, blah, blah. It's all happening. I'm like, well, Musk is doing that. I mean, they're just the face jobs. Musk is as much of an actor as Trump is, in my opinion. And I mean, I could just go off on that. Like SpaceX, you think that's a private company? This guy has like $500 billion and it's all basically derived from government actual money and monopolies and all of that he pumps into that thing. And it's like, these are government companies and Trump doesn't own them. Anyway, I don't know. Yeah. I don't even know where to begin in that rant, but I think that you're one of the few people I can just like vomit all that onto. And you're just like, I totally get it.
It's the equivocation 2-step. And it's also like, I mean, people are hardwired to equivocate if they've spent a significant amount of, their time and their social capital arguing on behalf of X. And not X the website, just X the variable. Okay?
That works.
Variable X, okay? And so, it makes them particularly hostile, especially early on. If you're one of the lone voices in the wilderness that have their hand up and they're like, I got a couple questions. They're like, questions are treason. We don't do questions. And it's been... I don't know, because I see it happen on both sides over and over again every couple of election cycles, where you'll have people that are spot on in pointing out all the various different agendas and angles of approach the state is taking, or that empire is taking, or deeps, or whatever you want to, however you want to frame it. Really good at spotting it. And then their guy gets in and all of the sudden they're immediately on defense. And it's what it comes down to. And I talk about this a lot on AM Wake Up, and definitely a lot with Tease when he co-hosts on Wednesday. T. Snyder, if you're not familiar, a brilliant filmmaker and wonderful human being. Go to conspiracysynergy.com.
Conspiracysynergy.com. He's been on the show a few times, but his filmmaking is so just really professional. Really.
Have you checked out the little mini docs he's been doing?
I've seen
on
some of them.
Media?
Yeah. I mean, and actually the first time I saw one, I was like, oh my gosh, did Tease do this? Yeah. You can just tell, but his films are amazing too. Like really, really well done. He's quite talented. I always marvel when there's someone of like a real super high level professional grade talent, journalism, filmmaking, whatever, in our sphere. Like that's a gem. Jeremy Kuzmarov, I love him for that reason. Just real pro.
Yeah, no, Jeremy's phenomenal, and he's got a great outlet
Yeah,
in his
Covert
own right.
Action Magazine. Yeah, he's
Covert
great.
action, yeah. But
But
yeah, so
yeah,
just quickly to
yeah,
kind of
go ahead,
button up
please.
my
No,
point,
no, don't be
like
quick.
Tease and I talk a lot about one of the greatest tricks that's been played in the era of the internet is taking the infotainment model that existed on cable news and then making it so that regular people in the internet era develop the same emotional attachment to the people presenting their infotainment that they did any particular film star, TV star, anything like that, or politician for that matter. And we're in an era of unprecedented emotional attachment, not just to our politicians, but to the people whose job it's supposed to be to analyze and break down and unbiasedly or even with disclosed bias, you know, disseminate this kind of information. And it's all being given broadly to, an audience that has been trained without any of their knowledge or consent to form these sort of emotional bonds and attachments.
That's really interesting that you should put it that way. I did not think of that. I have absolutely seen parallels with traditional media, radio. Like in my mind, I said this once and I got a feel like, wow, that was brilliant. It's all radio. Started as radio, it's
Mhm.
all radio. Podcasting
Yep,
is radio, TV is radio,
yep.
everything's radio. And I can see I've seen many parallels, but what you're talking about are two things that I was actually when I was thinking about, I was a radio host. When I was thinking about that, when I was being trained for that, two things that were the goal for me, I had thought of myself. I said, I want somebody to end their day at work and get in the car and turn on my show because that's a warm blanket. They're home
Mhm.
before they're home. That's what I want. And then when you have that, it doesn't really matter what you're saying. And then that was my goal, and that speaks to what you're saying. And then I didn't know if it was even possible in this realm. I don't think about it that way in this realm, but but I'll give it more thought. And then the other thing is that because it was a call-in show, I had to pivot to and train myself to, and was formally taught. People are going to call in only if they have an emotional reaction to what you're saying. So if you're educating them, they might be listening, but you can't gauge their engagement by the calls because they're not going to call. So then I would have to go and listen to Rush. I was in the Rush time slot, but on Saturday, I'd have to go listen to Rush, who was doing that. And I had different opinions, or my thing about Rush was half the time I disagreed with him, and the other half of the time he was lying. so but I would go back and listen,
All right.
and then I would have to go at that same time slot, I would talk about the same issues because people have to have an idea of what you're talking about. And then I would have to punch him in the gut because I disagreed. And boy, do you have to do extra homework when you do that. But that was the key to getting calls. That was the key to getting engagement, was the emotionalism. So both of those things are both totally emotional, and you're hitting on that. And I hadn't really thought of that. And I think that's interesting.
It's definitely something I've noticed, and I will credit the, you know, several dozen like union of the unwanted appearances for helping that come into full picture. Um, Particularly because normally like you're hearing positions and arguments from people that really can, see through it, and then it comes to this one particular issue or individual, and it's like all of the traditional mechanisms for skewing people's vision come into play. And you can fight off one of them, you can fight off 10 of them, but very few people can fight off 25, 35, 55, however many different angles of approach to the psyop they throw at you. And if you're not just generally hardwired to be like, well, if somebody from the state is talking, I'm inherently skeptical, you're
Right.
going to be in a worse position. But that's where the whole like, oh, you're black pilled smear comes into
Yeah.
play. And then you got to defend that. And it's wild. It's a weird time.
Well, there was another um another method, like the thing that in trying to figure out limited hangouts, I think the way, so you can do that in authors, you can do it in news, you can do it in podcasting, whatever. I always think that the way, what they tell you to do is say whatever you want, say what you really think. Really, that's the way to get it authentic. But for you, you don't talk about this subject. Never bring that into your silo. It's stuff like that. So it's authentic. And I think for many people don't even know that they're in that silo. Like it's like the firemen. A guy sued in Connecticut because he took an IQ test to become a fireman. And because he got too high at a score, he wasn't allowed to be a fireman. So I think that works too in media. You can say, look, if this person's like lets it all hang out and figures it all out, you can't really promote that because it's going to cause fissures and we don't want that. So anyway, but didn't mean to just start like talking about that. It's just that
No, I'm down. I'm
part
down.
of the Trump thing. It's part of the Trump thing, which is, yeah, there are plenty of people who are opportunists, controlled opportunists, like the phrase you coined, which I like. But there's this other thing that I experience out here in LA. So when I talk to like when I like the whole libertarian, extended libertarian, post-libertarian, like that whole people who like Trump but have that mindset, kind of like Ron Paul or get that idea, like the Bill of Rights and everything, they get a little mad at me, if I don't. There's a faction of them who don't like it because I think Trump's a complete actor. The assassination attempt was fake, like all of that, and people don't like it, and I understand that. But when I'm out in LA, like I went out recently with some people, and I didn't realize that me not liking Trump for the wrong reasons just made me another MAGA or just another asshole. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to hate him for the bullshit propaganda talking points that it says there. I have to hate him for cutting the budget. He's not cutting the budget. Like I hate him for not cutting the budget. So now, like, it's worse than when I used to like Ron Paul and it was like, oh, he's dangerous. Ron Paul.
It's the exact same kind of like mentality in the Bay Area too. Like, where it is entirely fashionable to hate Trump, but you have to hate Trump for the right reasons. You have to hate Elon Musk for the right reasons. And I'm in like Teslaville as far as that goes.
How's that going? Those people are all have cognitive dissonance, right?
Almost every weekend for the last couple of months, Monica, whatever we have to leave and go, run some errands or do some shit, go to a family member's house, something like that, drive by a Tesla protest or a Elon protest. And I want to start an Instagram page. I now have about 36 pictures of different Tesla vehicles, all with the like anti-Elon Tesla owner club sticker on it. And I bought this before Elon went crazy.
First time I saw that bumper sticker, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for you. What do you give a shit what I think? You know what I mean? It was so long ago. I was like, what are you even talking about?
Right. But like that's, I'm in Marin County, which is like ground zero for liberal stupidity at this point. And it's pervasive. Every time we get on the freeway, there's at least one of those stickers, if not 3, 5, 7, something like that. And we don't really go that far. I think 7 miles of freeway.
The Tesla thing, I feel confident that was a top-down thing. That wasn't a grassroots thing. And either and at the same time, other EV initiatives started taking the back burner. Like, do you remember they cut the EV thing out of one of Biden's acts or whatever? They're like, oh, we're backing off of this. And and I'm thinking, they don't back off of stuff because it's not popular or costs too much. Like this whole thing was not popular and cost too much from the beginning. So it either was this thing which I think is part that it's possible that the green movement, the green energy movement was just to ramp us up and then still go back to fossil fuels and nukes because AI needs so much energy. And you weren't going to be able to build it out and Bitcoin too. Bitcoin created this it's an energy eating machine. So it's creating the demand before you actually switch over that to AI as Bitcoin maybe runs its course or whatever. But I feel like that probably is going to give cover or add to the story of why Tesla is now backing off, or if it starts circling the drain, it saves Elon from being the one responsible, or gives a story. There's a narrative there.
Well, now Elon is going to be the first person to come up with the nuclear fusion based EV charging station, right? Because that's actually, honestly, if anybody can pioneer that and give me 10% as a consultant, I'm down, because that's really where we're going. All of the people that have been pushing the green agenda for the last 10, 15, 20 years, now they're all touting nuclear, which is one of life's delicious ironies. It really is. But you have to have that apparently as an answer to all of the data center stuff and all of the backbone of the IoT. We just this morning on the show did another article about the energy footprint that nuclear powered AI data centers are currently, or not even the nuclear powered ones, but currently,
really,
it's some ridiculous number.
But it's a fraction of what it's projected to be.
It's projected to be over 2/3 of any individual city or municipality's energy use. Just
and what annoys me about it is that AI, forget like the surveillance state aspect of it, or AGI, whatever, like it becoming the machine. On the one hand, it's our money. It's creating a labor force that is not needed. We do not have a labor shortage. People are asking me for work all the time just to babysit. There is not a labor shortage, and it's going to flood the market with labor or whatever. It's going to take the place. So like you watch these commercials where the guy's so excited that he's hungover and he got AI to do his work for him. And I'm like, you got like 2 weeks, buddy. And then you're out of a job. And then the other thing, I did this show with Stella, who's a listener, fellow podcaster, etc. But she's an artist. She's a singer, and she does the cartoons. She draws. She's super cool. And she, you know who she is? What?
No, I said heck yeah, and I
she's
have
awesome.
a vague idea of who you're talking about. Yeah.
So she does. So we did a show called The Artist versus AI, and like I don't even like copyright, so I'm not inclined to care about that from an artist's perspective. But they look at things differently, and there's reliance. Like there's a regime where you're contributing that because you expect to be protected. And a lot of people wouldn't do it if they didn't think it was going to be protected. So what AI does is just trawls the internet all the time. It gets that big data. It stole it all. And when it creates something for you, it's simply aggregating shit that happened before. It's not intelligent. Yep. So any way you slice it, I'm against the AI thing, and I'm not afraid of it. It's just unnecessary. It's wrong, and it's our money. A lot of our research money went into that. Elon Musk, like all of his companies are government funded. We are paying. It's like watching commercials on TV. We're paying for our own propaganda. We're paying for our own unemployment, enslavement, whatever. And so then to add insult to injury and make us live in digital cities or 15-minute cities, or not be able to, we're going to be the ones with the shitty power. We're going to be the ones with the blackouts. They're not going to let that thing go down. They can't. And it's like needs air conditioning and stuff. And they're building them in deserts. Like, what the fuck?
The whole thing is so counterintuitive unless you look at it as, well, what's supposed to be counterintuitive is intentional, and the obvious bad consequences that are going to arise from it are equally intentional.
Yeah, if it's foreseeable, it's intended, in my opinion.
This is a depopulation agenda being played out through many, many facets in many ways. I don't know if I'm sure you did, but the SPARS pandemic simulation document.
I think I've memorized that.
Yeah, they're doing chapter 18 right now. Right now in real time with what's his name, McCary, whatever, from CDC, and Jay Bhattacharya.
Is that the scapegoating chapter? Which one is that? Is that
It's the mistakes were made.
Yeah, right.
You
Yeah.
know, we're trying to right previous
Yeah.
wrongs. We're still,
I know.
you know, over
So funny.
here rolling out mRNA with Stargate for cancer and everything else, and MMR shots and everything. It's all still on an
Oh,
MMR
yeah,
schedule,
for
but we
sure.
really want to take time 5 years later to say initially some mistakes were made back
Right.
when we shut down the entire country over the sniffles.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody you know who's dying now, I mean, it's been like way too long. So you need to just shut the fuck up about that.
Right.
But
Right.
the way
Why
I
you
think
bringing
about
up
it is
old shit?
if you eliminate mink coats, you think there are going to be more minks in the world or less minks in the world?
Right.
Less. And the
Right.
same thing with cows and meat and all of that kind of stuff. The cruelty to animals, there's not going to be any animals. If you eliminate all human endeavor, they're going to cut you back to that 500 million person population that they had to blow up those Georgia Guidestones so that you wouldn't be able to see that that's the plan.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so I feel like that it just infuriates me that we have paid for this, that there's because I was an economics major. Like you don't invest in capital like that. You don't automate
Yeah.
unless you don't have enough labor for your current system because it costs a lot. And if you take that out of the equation for the corporations and make the taxpayers pay it, like that is just I mean, it's like bringing in the high level immigrants instead of the low level immigrants. Well, I'm in the middle. I want somebody to clean my house. I don't want somebody to take my job.
And then you've got Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy, you know, telling Americans that they're untrainable retards, and that's why we have to replace the population with H-1B visa applicants and O-1A visa applicants and all that kind of stuff. And they're doing it again. We just did a report. This covered a report this morning where California's population actually increased by a little bit more than 0.5% over the last couple of years, even though there was mass migration out. So, Monica, why do you think California's population had a little bit of an uptick in increase? Was it people
Open
from the
borders.
Midwest flooding it, looking for that post-depression boom?
The people from China coming in from Ecuador.
Well, so cross-border
I don't
illegal
know.
immigration is almost at zero right now, and it has been for a
I
while.
like the illegal ones. They're the ones who clean your house.
Me too, but
And they
what
don't
it
have
is,
to do minimum wage. I mean,
it's
I'm
all
being
H-1B
facetious.
visa applicants, though. That's
Yeah.
and they're predominantly coming, like you mentioned, China, but also India.
India.
And
It's
that's
India.
the replacement population, not just for California, but across the board, wherever you need, you know, tech workers that can
Well,
basically be modern day indentured servants.
Facebook used to lobby for that because
Mhm.
those people would take a lot less money because they probably I believe this is true. Certainly it's true for most other countries. They don't pay for college. So you've got these people coming over, even if they have to send money home, it's next to nothing. It drives down the wages. I don't want free college. I want no college subsidies whatsoever so that people go to college. If it's going to cost money, they either have a daddy or they're going to get a job that makes it worthwhile. And my little added zing is that if you cut corporate taxes to zero, because all taxes are just paid by human beings anyway, in the end, then companies will come in, they'll train people, they'll pay for their college. Like there's an easy way to do it. And that's not, but when Trump says it, people are like, he's so smart, he knows everything. And were you the one who's saying he goes for the savant? The
Yeah.
Savant. Oh,
I mean, I've
yeah.
said that. I don't know
Yeah,
if
yeah, yeah. I think I might have, I was listening to your show a couple times recently, and, I thought I heard you say that, but that's his angle, that
Mhm.
he doesn't give you a lot of reasons or whatever. He just says this thing. He seems like an oracle or a smart guy or businessman or, and people just believe it because they know that he's smart and successful. He went bankrupt 4 times. He was never successful.
My favorite thing about Trump, as far as his oratory goes, is exactly what we're talking about, and it is a savant-like quality where what you're doing is you're letting the entire room fill in the blanks for you.
Mhm.
And so you're you're putting out a partial sentence or you're putting out the most conceivably vague descriptor ever. And what that does is it gives everybody else's brain all the room in the world to fill in all of the blanks. And most of the people in the room are there in the room because they're boosters, because they're supporters, because they want to see whatever they feel the mission is, all the way through. So when you give them a mile of blanks to fill in with an inch of sentence, boy, are they gonna freaking do it.
I noticed that with Obama. I used to call it psychic
Yeah.
paper. I would say
Yeah.
Obama's like posters or psychic
Oh,
paper.
he was brilliant at
Like you
that.
just project. And with Trump, he used to do they're rapists and nice people. So you
Yeah.
can say he didn't say people say he called them rapists. You can say he called them nice people. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? Like everybody had a quote for everything. So you actually had some meat on the bones for any way you wanted to read it, which is very clever. But
Trump will
yeah.
do a lot of this, dude. He'll do a lot of, well, I don't even want to say. Or you know what I mean.
Yes.
And he'll just
Yes.
let everybody
Yeah, he's very
say
good at that.
he isn't, or be like, oh, I know what you mean, and it's
Yeah.
what I mean. And it really, as far as like neuro-linguistic programming goes, like that guy is he's on it. He's on his game. I don't even know if he knows it or not, if he was just raised that way. I'm sure
Well, here's your answer.
Well, Roy Cohn, yes. Yeah.
Which, did I mention this to you that the day he filed for running for president, this was in 2012 in anticipation of 2016, a warehouse full of the court records from when he testified on behalf of Roy Cohn in his disbarment hearing went up in flames, burned to the ground. Isn't that great? Isn't that
Gosh,
perfect?
that's convenient.
Isn't that just awesome? So, but I want to talk a little bit about Elon because he's been in the news for the past couple of days. And this one thing that just pissed me off is the big splash today was he said he was disappointed. And that just fucking pisses me off because disappointed means you had an expectation that was not met. He was disappointed in this bill that was just rammed through, because they used like I don't know if they used reconciliation. They used something that gave it a little bit of juice. They didn't need any Democrat votes to pass this big, beautiful bill. And he said it can be big or it can be beautiful, but it can't be both. I was like, oh, that's so cute, Elon. That's so pithy. Okay, today is May 29th. I tweeted on February 20th. So 3 months ago, more than 3 months ago, I said, Doge is not cutting anything. Look at the big, beautiful bill. Look at the budget projections. The deficit is projected to be $50 trillion in dollars in 2035. $50 trillion, $50 trillion. And think about that at 5% interest is $2.5 trillion just of interest a year. So don't tell this Doge thing. The best that it could possibly be, or if it's anything, is that rage thing by Curtis Yarvin, which is retire all government employees. It was basically voluntary. It was kind of stupid and whatever. It reshuffled things. But for this guy to come out after it passes and say, and that's just to keep that two words psychic paper thing going. Well, he didn't know, or this one didn't know. Like it's like a split personality. Now there are two personalities that you get to play around with. Well, Trump didn't blah, blah, blah. Why didn't Elon tell him? So Elon looks to me like a created person / actor. Obviously, I mean, that's obvious, but he's playing his part right now.
Well, without a doubt. And he's such you've got the phrase cutout, right? For like an NGO group or a private company that is really operating on behalf of an intelligence firm. Elon Musk is a 3-dimensional cutout for the Defense Department.
Yes. And all of his businesses, the Boring Company, Tesla, tech stuff, SpaceX, all of that money originally, like his wealth came from the money that he got from the government to subsidize, but also the fact that the government basically picks one company in every budding field, and that's it. That's it. You're destined to be the number one guy. But I want to ask you, Do you think like he has his pot smoking shtick? Do you think he's high all the time? Do you think he's because I find it hard to believe that he's running 3 or 4 or 5 of the biggest companies in the world while running a big government organization and tweeting all the time that he's also high all the time.
Well,
What
I
do you,
mean, number one, he's not running anything.
yeah, agreed totally. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying that's a
Like
story
he's
and it's
the
implausible.
he's the forward face of a number of different companies. But I mean, we've covered various articles on the show, pardon, over the years where he doesn't even have security clearance to attend certain meetings within his own companies prior to the Doge thing at any point. So he
Oh,
was cut out.
wow. Really? You found that?
Yeah, he was cut out from meetings within his own company because he didn't have the clearance for it. So
Wow.
he's just a figurehead. He's also supposedly one of the most prolific gamers on the planet
Oh my
and has
gosh.
like, you know,
All right, that's
he's been
ridiculous.
busted over and over for having people like ghost play his games and stuff like that. But if we're supposed to believe that he's got like we're supposed to basically believe that this one individual is like 8 or 9
Yeah.
full work week working individuals.
Yeah.
And that's on its face ludicrous, just completely ridiculous. What he represents is the technate. And this is something that you've talked about extensively, that I've talked about extensively, that we probably both talked about extensively with Ian Davis and Bros and a bunch of other people, you know, over the years, where this emergence of the legitimate technocratic state. And if you can have a Muppet, an easily hateable, targetable cartoon character who is in reality shaped like a Roblox character, like
Sure.
the same way they did with Klaus Schwab, Monica. You know, they put a grotesque Bond villain as and so everybody focused on him, and nobody looked at anybody who was Eric Schmidt. Nobody really looked at the rise of Stacey Abrams as Bilderberg Steering Committee
I looked at
member.
that.
I
I've
know
done
you did. I
hours
know
long.
I'm on friendly territory, but I mean, even JD Vance's position, or
AOC.
all,
I nailed her
yeah,
for president 5 years ago.
all of the people that have done, you know,
Oh,
been able
JD
to
Vance.
ascend
Oh, yes.
because there was distractionary theater being played. The rest of the PayPal mafia is running the White House, but nobody talks about David Sachs. Nobody talks about Peter Thiel. Nobody talks about Joe Lonsdale. You know, but they're all in there, all of them, yeah, integrally in there. And the focus yet is still on Elon Musk, who is, again, the most cartoonish and completely ridiculous figure. So, yeah, dude, you put the clown out so that people forget that Larry Ellison now has multiple government contracts, including with Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, thanks to Trump's recent trip to South, where he brought Elon and Altman and
I
Larry
know.
Ellison and all these guys.
That was in the news today too. So a couple of things. First of all, tech is a sister, daughter, probably a daughter of the defense industry. So it's not its own thing. That's why it's in California. That's
Mhm.
why it emerged from Stanford. Siri is Stanford Research Institute, like all of that. The I don't know if you noticed this. First of all, I'll just say, like, there's this ridiculous article in the Wall Street Journal today about Elon Musk being really pissed that Sam Altman got to go to the UAE and cut this
Mhm.
deal, and I want a deal too. And they just make it like the sports analogy is getting out of control because now they have these like sub rivalries and all of that. Then in my mind, what's underestimated is the amount of wheeling and dealing and corruption that's going on. So whoever's going to get a piece of that action is going to get a piece of that action. But like Trump stopped some big green farm in New York from happening until the governor assured him that his pet projects would be reignited. And like, you know, that's all about payola and kickbacks and stuff. But something that was interesting, one was definitely exclusive, and the other one might have been two. Did you see, because it was exclusive to the Wall Street Journal, this article about Klaus Schwab being investigated by Eric Holder and I guess he doesn't mind getting pushed out, but his son would also get pushed out. And it confirms what I've been saying all along. It's like these people, I mean, you're innocent until proven guilty, but the accusation is they're racist, sexist assholes. And it was like, yes, they seem like it, because teaching African girls how to code isn't because you love her. That's not what's going on there. So, and then I saw another article about the Goldman guy, the CEO of Goldman, also being investigated all of a sudden.
Yep.
So I think that is more of Chapter 18, but usually that stuff doesn't happen until after a financial crash. So I don't know.
Well, okay, so here's my thought on that, because I wrestle with this a little bit, and ultimately what I land on is, if the overarching goal is a fundamental quote unquote great reset, then you still have to go ahead and destabilize and debilitate all of those institutions. And I don't know if you've gone live on Rumble or not this week, but when you go live on Rumble right now, there's a brand new icon in the top right corner that says Tether. Link your Rumble to Tether. And so we've talked a whole bunch about like the whole like stablecoin bait and switch and what that really means, and forward facing bank issued or whatever issued tokens that still get processed as a central bank digital currency on the back end. And I see the push for online streaming, going this particular direction, to the point where you can't go live unless you're connected to your government approved and monitored Tether account through Rumble.
Oh, because I remember the day that I couldn't stream on Twitter without a blue check mark was the day that Trump had the fake assassination attempt, July 13th. I remember trying to go live. I was like, oh, I didn't know it was wrong. I've been silenced. I don't know why. And it happens to be that. But Vance did a speech about, so Trump last week had a little fundraiser for his meme coin or whatever. Vance yesterday, I think, did a little speech about Bitcoin is for the right and AI is for the left, but you got to keep track of AI. But at the same time, I think that they are pushing a stablecoin regulatory regime, which when it was under Biden or whatever, like people don't want that. But now, it's going to take a Republican to do it. It's going to take Trump to do it and make it seem like this is what we need, which maybe you do. I mean, I'm not for government regulation of anything. Let it crash for all I care. But people will be behind it because of him. And I want to make a prediction. I bet he pardons SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried.
Oh, yeah. No, that's coming. And if not, if he doesn't, Gavin Newsom will in 2020.
Or AOC.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be AOC.
Okay. She needs another 4 years.
They might run her as a vice president. Yeah. That might be the winning ticket right there, Newsom and AOC.
Yeah.
But I think they've really been, because she's not part of that old money establishment crowd.
Yeah.
And the Democrats, more so than anybody, they're the longest existing political party in the United States of America by far. And the old money entrenched establishment is the undercurrent that moves the Democratic Party. I know people like to push back on that, but when rubber meets the road and the donations need to come in, that's who's floating.
She did intern for Ted Kennedy when she was in college, though.
That's true.
So she is close to the.
Well, she does come out of that Columbia University.
She's a face job. Yeah, her dad was not one of them. You have to. You're not a front line. You have to get seasoned if you're going to do that. Like Kamala was seasoned. Kamala did have those deep tendrils in the shady stuff. But
she went to the right sorority. She's part of the Divine Nine as far as
she's
like
a
the
Knight
elite
Templar,
black fraternities go and stuff like that. Like she really did. And going to the Columbia School of fucking international studies means you're available for recruitment for the
Yeah.
CIA. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you can actually, elevate yourself to the ranks of international political stardom. So I think she hasn't even, dude, she hasn't even given it up the way that like everyone that's come before her has. She's been allowed to be kind of like
Ah,
she's
yes.
been allowed to have some attitude and shit, and that may be coordinated, but at the same time, I don't think she's really put in the kind of work that would warrant that sort of elevation. Unless they've got a lifetime commitment from her that they can draw
Well,
from whenever they want.
it just there has to be a certain amount of, like, vetting, trial by fire, like, you have to put so Stacey Abrams, I think, was really meant to be, like, the next Obama, but
Yeah,
she didn't her parents were preachers, and she went to performing arts school, as they do, but she just it could not translate to the visual, she couldn't do it, and, that's why I think they made her, like, the supporting character. And you have to see they have to develop that's why Trump was on The Apprentice. That was his apprenticeship,
oh yeah.
and AOC needs one of those for sure, but
And
Newsom
Stacey
doesn't.
Abrams, man, like, okay, you can be Cynthia McKinney and be from Georgia and be like slightly unconventional looking and also be a political firebrand and a powerhouse. But what separated Cynthia McKinney from Georgia and Stacey Abrams from Georgia is that Cynthia McKinney had like the actual convictions to
She was
back it up.
right. She was
Yeah.
saying the stuff that was true that you could Google, be like, "Wow, okay, that's true."
Whereas
Yeah.
Stacey Abrams seems to be like just a Tyler Perry character.
Yeah,
And
also
it's
from the
really
parody.
difficult. Like you listen to Cynthia McKinney talk and you're like, oh shit, she's serious. There's
Oh,
no
yeah, I mean, that's
no
why they
question.
had to Cynthia McKinney her.
Yeah.
They actually it's like a literally a verb, like, to get McKinney, where they
Yeah.
rewrote the district, and they put in that that guy who thought Guam was gonna tip over. Did you ever see that?
Was
The,
that Mac Jones, wasn't
ah,
it? Or was it
oh,
I
I
can't remember.
used to know his name, like, off the tip of my tongue. Congressman from Atlanta,
Yeah, he had like 3
Guam,
limbs and
tip
shit, right?
over. He was just, yeah, Hank Johnson.
Okay, that's
Hank
right.
Johnson. There's a funny even a funny, like, one of those that Hitler movie where they overdub what he's saying, and
Mhm.
that and he's just like, "Ah," like, when they're losing, and he's just like, "I can't believe you replaced Cynthia McKinney with Hank Johnson," like, put him in the back with a crayon. But he said he expressed concern about putting more troops on Guam because he was afraid it would tip over. And then later, they're like, "He was just joking." It's like, I don't know. It wasn't funny or anything.
Yeah.
Only funny because he was wrong. Anyway, so that's what they put in there instead of Cynthia McKinney. They were just in a hurry, apparently. But yeah, so that they stop it before it happens. That she was in place on 9/11, so they couldn't get ahead of that. But when
Mhm.
they see that you're gonna, if you're gonna tell the truth, they're gonna take you out, which is why I think we cannot have faith in the institutions. It's not a black pill. It's not the Pope is definitely setting us up for a massive, awful psyop, a schism in the church. I think he's going to be the Obama. Francis was Obama like, but I think this guy's really going to be the Obama. Like, he's from Chicago. He's going to
Yeah.
come in and promise unity, deliver division. You cannot be a progressive and unify a schismatic, proto schism or pre schismatic church. The only way to have unity is to go back to common beliefs. So progressives are looking for something different. They have to drag you along. Like, it's just impossible. And so Obama looked like he was going to give us a post-racial world, and instead he gave us super racy world, like him and Holder. And I fear the same thing for this guy. But you don't just can't get your faith in institutions. You have to be aware that it's never gonna. We're past that.
So this is the new or perhaps ultimate contradiction, not just for the church, but for all of us. Because how do you have a foundation without core values? But what core values are you going to point to that didn't breed the kind of institutions that were wholly corrupted either from conception or inevitably became corrupt, and thus resulted in the material world that we currently live.
The You have to go back to the 10 commandments or the 2 of Jesus, like the sacraments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, first of all, get rid of all the politics. It's the exact same thing as what's happening in this country. Go to the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. And if you just restore the shit that is written down on paper in the book, you're good. And the problem is, just like with the Constitution and stuff, these guys they have their agenda. If they're corrupt or whatever, and they try to twist what they want and shoehorn it onto those pages, and it's just not there. But fortunately, you don't have to listen to them. The only infallible thing the Pope ever said was that Mary was conceived without sin and her body wasn't corrupted. That's it. There's nothing else that, as far as I know, that you have to take as a matter of faith that was just handed down by a pope. So you can just go to the basics. My mother, like what? I like the sacraments. I like to, the Beatitudes, the corporal works of mercy, spiritual works of mercy. That's all they need to do or talk about. They're here to save souls, not lives, not jobs, not the environment. Nothing. But in any case, you're never getting that. The institution has been hijacked, and you're never getting it back. So don't look to these people for hope. It's a waste of time. But what it does is it keeps people from looking at the truth, which is the Bill of Rights or the 10 Commandments. That's where you should be focusing, in my opinion.
Well, it's that, but it forces people into kind of a pin where they have to pick what the new alternative is, as opposed to going, right, hey, let's shut all this shit down for a second and really give it a communal think up. Let's all just sit down for a little bit and talk about this. And that has, communal think up has nothing to do with communism or globalism or anything like that. Like, what you can sit down with people in your neighborhood to figure out what's best for your neighborhood. Might not be what's best for the overall community, but you can also figure out ways how you can, mitigate that without going, I need tanks, or I need a complete system of total digital surveillance, and I need nanobots in your bloodstream in order to figure this out.
And you make a good point. And what it's doing is it's splintering people who would accept, like a Ron Paul message. It splinters them, or, whatever, a back to basics kind of method. And then they're looking around wildly for whoever's going to give them convince them that that's the answer. And I think that's a problem. But like I say, 24/7 propaganda proves that they're not confident they have full control of your mind forever. They wouldn't have to do it constantly. So the last thing I want to ask you about is, I hear about what you're up to, but do you have an opinion on, like, the Bitcoin, gold, kind of those run-ups? Do you think that means anything, or is it being pushed? Is it inherent? Like, do you have any sense of why those two markets are going crazy? The dollar's plummeting, or what?
We've been in a period of de-dollarization for 9 to 10 years, and probably realistically more like 20 to 25 years. Like, if you want to peg it around 2005, but the precursor to the housing market collapse and that whole bubble with the, really the onset of the collateralized loans and credit default swaps and shit like that's where we were really like peak casino.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the inevitable downfall from having that casino go tits up, which it did. And the Fed
they kicked the can.
the Fed has, not just with TARP, with the 16.9 trillion that they allocated for that people rarely freaking report on, but let's take
Well,
that
I don't
approach.
know. Was it that? It's hard to get the right number on that. Where do you get that number? Like the
Uh,
Deutsche Bank bailout and stuff like that?
that was, honestly, that comes from Matt Taibbi, in, I think, 2011,
Wow, that's a long time
where
ago.
he was doing like serious number crunching and now
Yeah,
hired a whole bunch of nerds
yeah.
and had them really
Because
look
I
at
did
what.
always wonder, it was very shadowy where that money was. Like, even the Deutsche Bank number didn't come up on what you were yeah, TARP was like $1 trillion and then another one, but yeah, there
So
was so much
what it
more.
really was a series of Fed initiated print orders that were
Yeah.
continuously going into these banks that
Yeah.
over the course of years totaled to right around $17 trillion.
And a lot were
And
European, like, that's why the US
yes,
central bank exists, is to bail out the European banks. That's why they put it here.
and so that combined with the pretty much unlimited printing that Mnuchin engaged in 2019, starting around August of
Yes.
2019,
Oh, when the
that
repo markets start getting ugly?
hardly anybody reported on
Yeah.
this, Monica. I know you
And
did. I know I
ran.
did.
It front ran.
hmm Starting with that, though, early 2019 and going into the lockdowns and everything that happened after that, just the amount of trillions that kept pouring out, you can't,
Well, I
you
think that's
can't,
what it was for. That's
no,
COVID was for that. COVID was so that
that
they
was to
had an excuse to
stabilize the
print the
market.
money.
So
Yeah,
yeah, to keep it floating for a little bit, pass the buck to the
they
next
had
guy.
to. Yeah, it was it was circling the drain. Look at what they did. They had the insane deficits. They cut interest rates when they were at 2% already.
No, yeah, none of it makes sense. So when none of it makes sense, you have to look at the totality of it and go, okay, it makes sense in the inverse. So what's the inverse? The inverse is this has to be intentional because there couldn't be a shitstorm that organically created itself so that all of the dominoes would fall specifically for the ruling elite rather than you would think that one
Absolutely.
of them would randomly get kicked askew and a couple of schlubs
Yeah.
would benefit from it, but that hasn't been the case.
And bailing out banks that are failing because of mortgages, why not give the money to the mortgage holder? Why
Right,
not just give everybody the money for their apply for mortgage relief, and then you get the relief and they get the money. It's your
right.
fucking money.
You zero out, they
Yeah,
get paid.
yeah,
You don't have a future of negative credit and the inability to ever do this again. It was,
yes,
yes, maybe there was fault of yours for signing up for a
yeah,
predatory loan. We're never going to examine the
right.
tactics that lending agents use. Never. We're never going to talk about that. It's your fault for taking the bad loan. Okay, so you took a bad loan, but eat it. But here's the thing, if 137 million people all took the same bad loan,
Yeah,
maybe that's a game
it was a
that was
setup
ran on 137 million people
in a
and
highly
not
regulated industry.
right, one of the most highly regulated industries on the planet. So maybe the onus doesn't lie on the person who took the loan entirely.
But even if the person were totally to blame and, the banks were totally to blame also, they're getting bailed out for mistakes they made, these people. But think about the impact on society, on community. You would have kept your house, home ownership, like, it would have been in the best interest of the taxpayer rather than say, "Okay, everybody's going bankrupt, we'll give you the money, and then BlackRock can buy all these single family homes and rent them." I mean, think about the ripple effect of that. If they had just let the banks go under, it wouldn't have set it up quite that way, as you said.
No,
But
but you would have had a
yeah,
nation of, more autonomous, more secure
and
individuals
I
rather
love
than.
I love your idea that their credit would be shot. That's great. Russia has probably the lowest debt to GDP ratio of any major country because it went bankrupt like 30 years ago. It defaulted on its bonds. Great. That's what I want. If the US government were incapable of borrowing money, we'd have a balanced budget and we'd be done. No more problems.
Yeah.
So anyway,
No,
now that we've solved it all, I want to hear what's going on with you.
Okay. Well, I have no ability to wrap my head around a government living within its own means. I don't. I don't know what that looks like.
Probably scares people to hear that. Like, it probably sounds like, oh my gosh, everything would collapse. But it's like Ron Paul, like, you marched them in, march them out.
Yeah. Yeah. So many of us, and this, better than a lot of people now, having gone through what you went through with fires and all that shit and having to evacuate, when you really have to like start from ground zero, it changes your entire character. And it changes all of your priorities.
Absolutely,
and it redefines the way that you look at absolutely everything. So there are people walking around, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old that have never had to zero out and don't know what's
Boomers.
that, have no concept of what that's like. And they're living in a completely different reality than the majority of the US population, which is crazy because the people who don't live in reality are de facto responsible for making the majority of the decisions that impact the people that live in reality.
That's what I've always said. What are the most influential occupations, industry in the entire country? This was long before I ever heard of the cathedral or any of that. It's media, academia, and politics. And none of those people ever have the rubber hit the road. Never. They are never the ones who wake up and say, shit, that didn't work. I just got fired. Or that didn't work. I'm broke. I have to go bankrupt. Nothing. Ben Bernanke is considered a hero because he implemented the paradigm, and that's all they want. That's all they want is to support, to validate the paradigm, even if failure invalidates it. As long as your lip service and your propaganda BS does, that you don't contradict the message they want, the framework they want in your head. Anyway, it's always so stimulating talking to you, Steve. And I don't know how you do it. You get up so early and you do a show every day and you keep up on everything and you have deep insights on like everything I asked you about. You roll with it. You're a smart guy.
I try to nap every now and then.
That's not it. You've got a lot of gray matter there, but I mean, I don't know my drug of choice is caffeine, and that would explain like being able to do that stuff, but you're impressive.
She's saying that because my drug of choice is cannabis.
Is not a stimulant.
And I'm not supposed to be this this according to the propaganda. However, I've heard all of the propaganda around that particular plant my entire life, and my lived experience, Monica, which we're all supposed to value.
I don't have that lived experience, so I'm not opining on it.
We're all supposed to value lived experience. So but mine has always been, the everyone that I've ever been around on a job site, everyone that I've ever been around who's really put like intense amounts of work into what they're doing across the board, with the exception of a handful of people that used to be but aren't now because they used to drink too much, are all stoners. And there's just I don't know, it seems like there's an effort point, right, where you you get to a certain amount of information and you're like, you know what, dude, I'm taking a break. I'm taking a break, and I want to be able to come back to this, but I want to be able to approach it from a slightly different angle. And whatever my current headspace is, I'm too angry about what I'm having a visceral emotional reaction to it. I need to take a step back from that Okay. And we've talked about this before, but in my younger days, I probably did abuse the thing. I did. I'm
I
sure I did.
know.
I'm sure I did.
I've heard your
It
stories.
I'm 47 now, and probably 20 years ago, I heard George Carlin talking about cannabis, and he was saying like effectively the same thing. When I was a kid, yeah, dude, it was fun. It's fun. You go get junior high wasted or whatever, dude, running around the middle of a football field, slam your head into your buddy's freaking forehead, and have fun, whatever. But at this point, it's like, yeah, punch up. If I'm in the middle of like working up something that I want to talk about, or if I'm writing something, or if I'm trying, and it's not quite where I know it needs to be, take a 5-minute break, alter my perspective slightly, and be like, oh, well, there's a whole, you know, freaking off ramp
Another way to
worth of
look at
jokes that
it.
I missed there. And yeah, that's great. But it's more of at this point, literally like a performance enhancing.
Wow. Well, I after these fires, I must have had like a personality change and I started smoking again. After 16 years of not smoking cigarettes, I started smoking
Hmm.
fucking cigarettes again.
Yep.
I had to re-quit because as my husband says, they don't even get you high. I was like, I know, I know,
No,
I
but they keep
know.
me from killing you, and
Yeah,
that's why
no,
they're
he's
good.
I just get it does get you a little teeny bit high, I have to say. If you're as
Yeah.
clean as I am, like shit gets you high. Everything gets you high. So
Tobacco is strong medicine if
yes.
you
Yeah.
haven't.
Who knows
Yeah.
what they put in it these days? I have a neighbor who rolls his own, and I'm like, dude, if I ever get so desperate, you're gonna have to give me a hit, but I will probably go off for 2 days straight.
You can pop filters in them. You can pop,
Oh yeah.
all that kind of stuff. It is apparently a way cheaper thing. I haven't smoked cigarettes in years.
Yeah,
Um,
no, the cool kids no longer smoke cigarettes, so I'm just a loser. It's funny because I like people really think that you're like complete and utter trash if you smoke cigarettes. It's kind of funny. So that was a little cultural wake
which
up
is
call.
all. I know we're getting off track and stuff like that, but
Well, yeah, no, it's fine.
like
You gotta
one
go.
one of the things that I enjoy about watching Andrew Wilson is that Andrew Wilson is true to himself in that he is a cigarette smoking,
Yeah.
beer drinking, California born, full accepted. I live in Michigan now. And this is what happens when we live in Michigan now. And we're going to drink shit beer and we're going to smoke cigarettes. And you can go ahead and hate me for it. Be mad. Go ahead. Be mad. Be mad. Mad as you want. I'm not going to deviate from this because if I do, it'll be worse for you. It won't be worse for me. And so I appreciate that.
I do respect people who have the courage of their convictions and just don't care at all what no consequences doesn't matter. I like that. I have had experiences where what you do has no consequences and it's amazingly liberating. I feel like that's how very large men must feel all the time. Like if you're 6'6", like somehow I feel like you can probably have a whole different worldview, a little more confidence. But I want to talk about the brighter side of life, of the ultimate white pill, the Third Eye Carnival. Can you tell us about that? What's the story with that? Like, how long is it? What's going on there? Talk to me, babes.
This July 4th, 5th, and 6th in Pueblo, Colorado, we're going to be doing our third annual Third Eye Carnival. So this is something that again, T. Snyder, who we talked about earlier in the show, Tease and I came up with a few years ago. The original challenge was if you're, one of the thousands of people that are watching these shows, take a little bit of initiative, host a cookout, dinner party, have some friends over, and then watch some of this stuff together. Maybe talk about it afterwards, but just invite some people over, be like, hey man, we're gonna watch some weird shit, and then hang out. And it became immediately and abundantly clear that was never gonna happen. So we were like, well, in lieu of that, I guess we'll have to lead by example. So we organized a little get together in Pueblo, Colorado, at a really cool place called the Blowback Gallery. Incredible art gallery. The dude that owns it is awesome. Jeff Medine, rad as hell. Been on Grand Theft World a couple of times, primarily because he does this thing called the Truth Art Show, where people submit truth community oriented and inspired artwork.
Awesome.
So
Wow.
7,000 square feet
Wow.
of
That could be
freaking art
pretty cool.
gallery.
I want to see the
That's where
9/11 exhibit.
that's where I got this.
Oh, wow. I've been
Uh,
admiring it.
and it's probably hard to tell, but the
I see
spray
the
paint
moon.
can says Agent Orange.
Nice.
Buddy's wearing a gas mask. It's just spraying a cloud of death. Got a little,
Are they on the moon, or that's just
Yeah.
American flag? Oh, he's holding an American flag. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's dark.
But the amazing artwork on the walls, and the whole impetus for Third Eye Carnival is we wanted to combine an art form with some real conversations with real people in 3 dimensions, reminding everyone that no, you're not by yourself. You're not just out here on an island going, hey man, things are weird, and people look at me like I'm dumb if I'm like, hey, things are weird. No, there's a lot of people who understand that, and who would like to build a network and a community, not just locally, but further out. The impetus of the Third Eye is on a local network building experience. We want as many people from as close to where we're throwing it together to come out. And so in Pueblo this year, because we've always had a focus on music there, we're doing 13 bands over the course of 3 days.
Seriously? Wow.
13 bands, all of them local to the Colorado area, with the exception of like 1 or 2 people that are coming up from like a state away. So really heavy, there's a lot of people all over the country, Monica, that are doing really cool, really subversive, really anti-state and anti-stupidity art. And we would like to highlight these people. So that's what we're doing with Third Eye. And so 13 bands, 3 days, some of your favorite podcasters hanging out. We're going to do a couple of live podcast things. Tease is coming down from Canada for that. He's continuing to film a documentary on Charlie Robinson from Macroaggressions, who will also be there.
Oh yeah, they're all great. I liked her voice. I think I saw, did he do T-Lab?
Not yet. So what's being edited currently, it's T-Lab, some of the people from Union of the Unwanted, my show AM Wake Up, and Third Eye Carnival. And he's incorporating that into like one larger documentary because it all happened right around the same time. And because Third Eye Carnival in Nashville this year, we had,
that was just a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah, that was first weekend in April. We had it was the co-birthday party, my co-birthday party with Ryan, Last American Vagabond. We're born a day apart. We were like, oh, we should do a co-birthday party.
Same year?
Yeah, no, not same year.
He's a little bit younger than me.
Okay. But yeah, we're born a day apart. We are in a lot of ways very similar. Somebody made a meme of us, and Ryan was sativa and I was indica. They were like, it's the same plant, you just get it different ways.
Got it.
But so Ryan and I were out there. Scott Armstrong from Rebunk News and Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. Scott hosted comedy night.
Nice.
Leonardo Joni came out, did a comedy set. Brad Binkley, Brad came up, did a comedy set. Sam Tripoli came up and did a comedy set. Kurt Metzger showed up out of nowhere and just crashed the panel for a couple hours.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So Pueblo is a nice place, right? Is it It's a little off the beaten path, but Colorado's
It's
pretty beautiful.
Yeah, Pueblo's it's like 2 hours or so from Denver. But it is a really funky, cool little town. They have a whole section of street that is lit up with neon signs, and it's like an international tourist attraction at this point. They have one of the original Union stations, which, as far as like people interested in Tartarian architecture and stuff like that go, yeah, uh, there's that. But it's, it's stuck in like high desert, and if you go an hour, you're in huge trees and Rocky Mountain stuff.
Yeah,
Like, it's a
super
really
cool.
cool location. And yeah, we have, like, the focus is on connecting people locally to get them to realize that they can network within the place that they live, and it's
Yes.
not
Yeah.
just freaking them, but more so than that, it's to remind people that there's still really good art being put out. There's a really good music, really good comedy, really
Yeah.
good, multi-dimensional, multi-spectrum artwork, whether it's, physical like this, whether it's film. Yeah, and the culture that's being forced on us is something that we're capable of opting out of. Like, we can
Yes.
create the kind of culture that we want to live in.
Absolutely.
We
Yes.
don't have to be forced to react to this nonsense. And it is nonsense. So we can build sense together. And one of the ways that we can be reminded of how this happens is by, coming and hanging out and being together in fellowship and kinship with people who think similarly to the way you do.
I was listening to, I don't know, the news on the radio earlier today, and there was a commercial for a TV show about reality shows. And I thought, why am I a libertarian? Like, what liberty is most important to me to not have to watch that?
Yeah.
Unless I was forced Clockwork Orange style with my eyeballs open. As long as I live in a society where I'm not, it's almost as bad as the other show I saw advertised, which was a bunch of guys sitting around, like David Beckham or whatever, watching soccer. The show is you watching them watch soccer. And I was like, I can't, please, like, just don't make me. So yes, you have a choice. And I actually am nostalgic for a time that I was not alive for, but where before you had screens, that's what you had. Like, people, young ladies, knew how to play the piano, or you would, like, you see in old timey movies or Chitty Chitty Bang Bang or whatever, in the town, in the park, there would be a pergola or whatever, and the guys would sit around with their straw hats and they would play a banjo, and people would go down there because there was nothing to do, and they would connect with each other, and they would know how to do stuff, and they would enjoy it and get actual real music in their ears rather than, flattened out amplified sound. I just feel like there is something so, that it evokes that humanity that we're quickly getting smushed into, like that crazy Apple iPad commercial where they just like smush everything in the crush. They smush everything. Hat tip for the listeners who turned me on to that. I think it was Karen Carpenter, but anyway, that you just, I said that's one of the listeners' name, but like they smush it all in, and it's just flat, and that's not reality. Is you never know what's going to happen. Which, by the way, I hear congratulations are in order. Is that public knowledge? Is that true? Are you engaged to be married?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
They're telling me in the chat to give you big snaps for that.
Yeah, very, very, very stoked.
So good things in real life. That's good.
Heck yeah, man. No, as crazy as this whole thing, like, you had the radio show before, and so you
Oh, thank
kind
you.
of knew how weird it could get, but it's probably gotten substantially weirder.
Yeah, it is. It is funny. Yeah, we would have meetups and stuff, and you're surprised, like in real life, putting faces to voices and names, and a lot of people will show up with, and give you, a jar of homemade pickles and stuff. Like, you're like, wow,
Yeah.
you're real. Like, you've really been doing stuff. You're not just you're playing podcasts while grilling homemade cheese. Like, you're doing stuff.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So I
I
love
mean,
that.
and so yeah, as weird as it's been, and as many like, you know, like physical things as I've had to go, like I've gone through 9 laptops and probably a dozen phones, and I had a truck burnt down, and I had a divorce, and like all kinds of shit that I've been through since I started doing this. The end result at this point, so much better than I ever could have possibly imagined. And yeah,
That's great. So if people want to, what's your actual URL? I just Google Third Eye Carnival, but does that come across? Where do people go?
thirdeyecarnival.com works. Blowbackgallery.com works for Third Eye
And that's
tickets.
just BLO, right?
BLOBACK, Blowback Gallery. If you are listening in the Colorado area, please help me connect with local podcasters and or radio stations. I want to talk about that over the next month before we get there.
How about CBD joints and dispensaries and stuff? Maybe you
Yeah,
get little
absolutely.
flyers.
Yeah.
If people are listening, they can put a little flyer up in their local
Yeah, so
dispensary.
flyers are available in the Telegram group. We'll have them with the complete list because it's been building. We've been, trying to make sure we have all of our acts secure and stuff like that just over the last few days. Everything sort of lined up in the spot. But finalized artwork coming, I don't know, probably this weekend. So here's the thing, and I really do want to stress this, because I come from a working class, blue collar. I had my first job when I was 9, detasseling corn. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
The kind of background. I am not a bougie or highfalutin dude. I'm just
Yeah.
not. As a result, there's never going to be an event that I put on that bends you over and breaks your bank. So right now, for 13 bands for 3 days and live podcasts and, real community with real conversations that you may not be able to have when you leave, $75 for the whole freaking 3-day pass if you get the early bird tickets.
That's
If you
amazing.
get them late, it's still going to cost you less than $100. But like the whole
I don't know how you
reason,
do it. Like, that doesn't even make sense.
the people who come on board to play and hang out and be a part of it understand what we're trying to do. They know it's a community building exercise. It's not let's get rich quick off of
Oh
throwing a
my God.
festival exercise. And there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of people that take advantage of the truth community, and what they do is they put on conferences and they charge like $2,300 for the weekend, and it doesn't even include your room and board. It's just the ticket so that you can hear people who think that they fart gold dust and sparkles tell you that they fart gold dust and sparkles. And like,
buy my book.
Maybe you'll get to make some like real world connections with other attendees, but you're never going to be sitting on a picnic table with all of the people that were speaking that day, while you're sharing a meal, smoking a joint, and bullshitting about like absolutely everything, which is what you get at Third Eye Carnival. So
That's pretty fun. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's everybody's a part of the thing. It really, like, we did this is the third year in a row in Pueblo. We're going back to Nashville next year. We've got another one coming up this year in September in El Paso, Texas. It'll be the third one we've done this year. Next year, we're probably going to do 6, if not 7. We have other locations popping up. The whole thing is designed to be replicated All we want is art form plus real conversation
Mm,
in a place that won't completely bend us over for being there,
mhm.
and people coming together to realize that they're not by themselves. So the whole thing doesn't even necessarily have anything to do with me other than you're calling it a third eye carnival, and that's how people know what they're going to get when they go to show up. And so we can do this with or without me literally everywhere. The whole point is you can build a community network in your community. There can be something that is a rallying point for sure. There has to be. There has to be. Right now, it's music or maybe comedy or something like that, but it's people that allow themselves to step outside of whatever their preconceived notions were and just enjoy a show. So either you can rock out or you can laugh or you can show up bitter and pissed. But if you showed up bitter and pissed, you showed up bitter and pissed before you fucking left your house, and I can't do anything for you at that point. I can't. I can't. You know, we're here to show people that you're allowed to celebrate life, have a good time, be in your own skin, be comfortable in your environment, do whatever you think it is that, like, in a very large group public setting allows you to express yourself, and nobody's gonna care other than you. They can look over at you and be like, that guy's having a great time. Like, that's, we don't have that in the independent media as much as we should. What we have is people who mourned their faith. When they put their faith on display, they don't celebrate it, Monica. They mourn it.
Oh, interesting. Yep.
There's a distinct lack of celebration of faith. And I would
That's a
love to
good
see
point.
that. I would love to see more celebration of faith than people mourning their fate or lamenting their fate. And that's what the emphasis, in my opinion, has been on heavily, especially in the more like religious areas of the internet. It's a mourning of faith. You have to celebrate that. It's the ultimate gift, the ultimate present, the sole reason for us to continue our lineage in celebration to a power greater than ourselves. Why are we not uplifting that as the most precious, beneficial, glorious thing that we could ever possibly receive? Why is it something that's like, well, I have,
Well, we're all like under attack. Then this schismatic thing drives me crazy. But I like that, they're making fun of me for streaming on Facebook, but it's good to have a Facebook page. Third Eye Carnival has a Facebook page so that I don't know if people can interact on that. Yeah, you can interact there, which will be a nice way to follow up with people you meet and all of that.
Yeah, no, you can't you can't hate on anybody for putting their stuff wherever it can land until it gets kicked out. I've always had the opinion that I've been kicked out of better bars by bigger bouncers.
Yes.
So your
Yeah,
social
no,
media
I'm not worried about it. It's
platform,
like limited hangouts. I get more out of them than they get out of me. I'm fine with it. I'm not afraid. I'm not
yeah,
afraid of that stuff. I used to get thrown off of Facebook all the time. Like, forget it. Like, until they start throwing me off, I keep streaming there.
and you're such
So,
a nice woman. I can't believe it.
ah, thank you very much. I know. I don't know why. I don't do anything I don't think I'm that far out there. I'm never hatey. And,
In all honesty, Monica, you are one of the most reasonable, like, level-headed, sane voices in this whole sphere that we participate in. I've been very,
thank you.
very grateful, and I've been educated by your content over the years, and I really do appreciate, like, what like, you're one of the few people I'm like, oh shit, dude. Like, if I'm not on a particular panel show, not gonna say which one, but if I'm not on a particular panel show and you're not there, I'm like, fuck, it's just me. God damn it.
It is nice having a someone who sees eye to eye. It's fun. I love the back and forth. I don't need to agree, but I do find that if you are kind of reasonable and level-headed, that's when I think the censorship is worse, because if you're really out there cuckoo, they don't really think, they think that
Yeah.
you're enhancing a dysfunctional subculture, which is literally a written goal of the
Yes.
psyop. So
Yeah, that's
I'm
from the
I'm
Cass
trying to like
Sunstein playbook,
get
right?
get our feet back down on the ground. So,
Mhm.
all right, well, that's awesome. Let me see if there's any chats here. There's some of the stuff is I put most of the stuff up as we went along. Here's the blowback gallery. Here's the Third Eye Carnival. All right, Steve, do you want to tell people about just the shows that they can find you on? I mean, it's AM Wake Up basically every day of the week. What's Friday's a little different though, right? What's Friday?
So on Friday, we run a show that's curated by a gentleman named Ryan Graham, who also does a lot of the merchandise for independent media. He owns,
Oh,
he
cool.
yeah, um, he lives up in Beaverton, Oregon, and has a great merch shop where he does stuff not just for me, but for like Charlie and Scott and Garland Nixon, all kinds of people, like all kinds of people that you can get from his shop. But he does a sort of amalgamation of various different conversations that have taken place in the independent media space throughout the week. It's all thrown together in something called the Independent Review. So that runs for a couple hours. And then usually after that, for another hour or two, we go live, bullshit, hang out. I open up the StreamYard for anybody who wants to jump in.
Cool.
I also do a show on Monday called Blunt Force Wisdom. I do a show on Tuesday called Deliberating Dogface Dudes. It's a debate show. We have fun. We have fun.
Do you do Saturday Night Anarchy? I
I
remember.
host I host the
Yeah,
show on
okay.
the channel. It's not my show, but I'm on there
Right.
frequently. It's
Well, I'll
one
be
of
there
those
on
like,
Saturday. So I don't know if you're going to be there on Saturday, but I
oh
will see you
yeah,
on Saturday.
absolutely. No,
I
it's great.
remember being on that, but sometimes I confuse it with the other one that with Don Jeffries
Oh,
and
America Unplugged. Yeah.
yes, because that's
Right.
on Saturday morning. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
swap them out sometimes. Billy Ray
My
Valentine and
shout
Tony
out to Billy
Arterburn.
Ray and Tony.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I will be on Saturday Night Anarchy, and I
Oh, fun.
guess I'll bring my cocktail, but I worry because like 20 minutes into my kind of cocktail, and you just don't want a nice lady like me. I curse, I smoke in the house, I tell you stories that you wouldn't believe are true, as
The
if we're just having
show
a cocktail together. I'm like, somebody's going to be listening to this on a Monday morning and be like, what the hell? I
the
thought she
show
was a
is
nice
Saturday
lady.
Night Anarchy, however, and
I
so
know,
we're
I
we're
know. You
used
should
to
It should
you know
disappear you should disappear at midnight. That's how I used to do my shows, a disappearing patron party. Like, we can have as much fun as you want, but I'm burning it afterwards.
ooh, that'd be fun.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I used to do. It was great.
we'll do a pop-up show like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate it. I know you get up early and I don't want to keep you late. And hopefully I'll see you Saturday. Good luck on the Third Eye Carnival. It seems like a lovely experience. And I will actually be at Black Sabbath in Birmingham, England that day. So I
Heck
think that's
yeah.
a valid, I had to make a choice,
That's a
and
good
this
reason
was a
not to
once
be
in a
there.
lifetime. But anyway,
Yeah.
so good luck with that. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you Saturday. And thank you all for coming.